Good evening, everybody. It's me, closing the door, Comic Crack. I kind of couldn't wait. I so when I think of comics that I enjoy, and when I think of why I like some of the things that I like, and why I hunt for some of the things that I hunt, I have had a stream of kind of mind-boggling reads these past couple of days, and I just couldn't wait. I've read quite a bit actually this week, so I don't want to talk about all of it. I do want to save some of the stuff I've read for our chat on Sunday, but I couldn't wait to talk about some of this stuff, and I put all of this together because it feels in a similar wheelhouse. I got nothing against superhero comics. I've always dabbled into it, and there's still some superhero stuff that I love for sure. I love me some Doctor Strange. I thoroughly enjoy some of it. Kind of growing up and going to the comic shops, it was always the 90s independent, the 70s underground that caught my interest. There's something about the storytelling and kind of the freedom to put something down on a page in absolutely your own voice. There's no, especially when we deal with things like the 80s boom and the kind of height of even the underground comics era. There's absolutely some stuff in that boom that just really shits the bed, no doubt about it. But the thing is, it kind of opens this door to getting your ideas down, having an outlet for some, whether it's inner demons, whether it's just the sheer joy of creating something, whatever it is, and hunting for that stuff that really hits that sweet spot is something I've always enjoyed, no matter what it is. I think that the books we're going to have a quick look at tonight, there's 5 different ones here that we're going to have a quick look at, really kind of capture that to some degree or another. So yeah, let's just enough of the preamble. Let's get into it, and we'll start here and we'll end strong. So this is the 39 Screams, number 4 and number 5. I believe number 5 was the final issue. Eric Robert McCrae is doing the covers on both of these here. I believe it's 1986 for both of them. So this is published quarterly by Thunderboss Press, based out of Baltimore, Maryland. And yes, this is 1986. So Kevin Urich is the publisher on this. I've started to do some very, very basic. I'm sort of isolating some of these kind of books that I really like. And I've started doing some searches for people who were involved in these books. I've reached out to a few people at this point. Lord knows if I'll hear back from a single one of them. But it does feel like there's something here that I just want to hear from anybody, even if it's just a quick email or a message over Facebook of what they were thinking when they were putting this stuff out and putting pen to paper. So I started here because out of these ones, there's minimal stuff in here that worked for me. And I should say that I read these 2 issues right after I read a book we're going to talk about a bit later called Macabre. And no matter what I read after reading Macabre, there's no way I was prepared for anything after that. And there's no way that something would have stood the test of time after reading that. But I did want to highlight this first couple of stories. Like I said, they're not horrible. They didn't do much for me. It's our cover artist, and this stuff too, actually. Monsieur Verlin, Mr. Verlin, I think is his name, his pen name that he goes by. This is pretty great looking material here. This is pretty good looking stuff. Very simple. In the second issue, or in this other issue that I have, issue number 5, he also has a one-pager in there too. But looks pretty accomplished. And again, it really has that underground, almost Frank Stack type of aesthetic going for it here. And then he also does kind of a pin-up as well. Mr. Verlin, yeah, there's the signature there. This is Fashion Victims, and the art on this one, so it was the last 2 stories here. Art on this one is Daryl Brown, script by Richard Peabody. This is the kind of stuff that starts to really catch my interest. A lot of this stuff, the stories themselves are they're very threadbare. But that's okay. This was the highlight page for me, I think. So we have this band that's playing in these bars, and there's a woman in the audience who kind of gets next to the guitar player, and they start chatting at the bar. They end up going home together, as you can see clearly, just in a car. And just in case you weren't sure, there's them driving down the road, and they have sex. And something starts to change with him that the band notices. But look at this stuff here. It's something, man. So forget about comics language. Forget about taking influence from previous comic artists, Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, insert name here. It feels like there's not saying that these people haven't read comics and aren't fans of other artists. I do believe they're just trying their best, and this is just their voice. They're not looking to mimic somebody else. They're looking to just create something. So this one was outstanding. And then here, I think we have the art in that one was outstanding anyway. Yes, I'm pretty sure this is him. Actually, the last few things in here are pretty good. Sorry, just looking. Yeah, there we go. History of Man, Eric Robert McCrae. This guy, I haven't looked his name up yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if he went on to bigger and better things. There's a real kind of confidence here for sure, and a unique style as well. Even just the page layouts, as basic as they are really nice. And I think what he really excels at is this kind of stuff here. So this sort of mimics what he does on these covers, these framed off, odd shaped panels that make up the cover. Kind of mimics here. So entering almost abstract comic territory with a figure dissolving, eyes and some lettering, and then just a panel of energy before going to a panel of black with a little bit of flare on that border, and then our title to end it all off. Really nice stuff. I love this page. That's something. Oh boy, maybe it'll say at the front. No, it doesn't. I can't read that name, unfortunately. I think it says Al Greenier. I apologize. Let's see if that'll focus. Probably no chance. It's very, very small. but there you go. This was a fun little one-page strip as well too. And again, some really nice contrasting, like these are nice panels here. And then you get, maybe it was a jam comic with his kid. And then this here, a standout panel by any standards. So, and it kind of continued in with issue number 5. Again, this is kind of starts giving you a little bit of insight into what it is about these things that I do dig. Like, look at this page here. I'm guessing that white space are the pillars at the front of a house, all of them, but utilizing them in that way instead of just making them black, having them almost create these little panels. Really, really great. Yeah, this was actually a really good one. Let's focus on this one. Actually, this was the standout story from this issue. Daryl Brown again, script Richard Peabody. And you can see our 2 main characters here trying to make time with some chicks, fucking jocks, etc., etc. Getting approached by one of the girls to basically dipping him in her arms, lifting up his head and gazing into his eyes after she's knocked his ass over, and inviting him to her place. Hello, Miss So, how are you? And like all of these horror anthologies, we know that something bad is coming. When he finally, he invites his buddy as well to, his buddy at first says no, changes his mind, comes to the party, and walks into like a black magic type of ritual here where they're eating something. We were expecting you. Ah, Rudy, and just in time. No, for dessert. Dun, dun, dun. And there's his buddy's head in there, spooning it out like in Faces of Death with the monkey. Outstanding stuff. And then here's Mr. Verlin again, a couple of pages, but beautiful looking all the same. So a fun couple of issues, 39 Screams, no doubt about it. I will be grabbing the rest of them eventually when I can find them. So brings us on to another that sort of borders. This one borders a little bit differently, though. This one feels almost like these are people that are accomplished, that are going for a certain aesthetic. Monsters are taking over a town. Of course, the adults and the parents don't believe it. Excuse me. And end up taking over the body of Edie, who then dies. It's just kind of a recap from the previous issue, but is discovered to actually still be alive. But we find that Edie has just been taken over by one of the monsters. So what we've got here, we got February 1987, Chorus Comics, and this is out of New York City. Prologue by Gary Voodoo, publisher. Again, an entertaining book for sure. Some really great stuff happening here, almost like a Spirited Away. The woman that runs the bathhouse. That's what that looks like right there. That's kind of the monster that has taken over their friend Edie. And this issue ends that particular story and promises more spin-offs and etc. And then for the final issue, this was the final issue of the run. We get a different artist. Let me get the credits proper here. This is April 1987. Oops, I'm missing a page. There we go. Art by Daniel Locher and story and script by Stephen Hallman. Yeah, so things like this, it feels more purposeful. but there is still a real character to it that is super appealing. This was a really fun issue, actually. There's his dog. He was asking what happened to his dog. His dog has been tied up into the shed because he's clearly deranged and savage. Beautiful stuff. This was kind of the highlight out of the 4 issues I have of this No Such Thing as Monsters. I think this is the highlight for me. This is, I want more of this style of art, without a doubt. Now, maybe we'll do these ones first. So when we really get into it and we really start digging deep and really start digging, every once in a while you find something that's kind of life-changing as far as a comic reader or a bin diver or a junkie is concerned. And this is this book for me. This is easily one of the most disturbing comics I think I've ever read in my life. And I don't, I'm not saying that lightly. And it's the entire package that makes it so disturbing. The content of this, the content of our first story called Shadows, the art style that goes along with it, the fact that it's some little Canadian publisher by the name of Lighthouse Publications, 1989, from Brampton, Ontario, Canada. All of those things just bring this to another level. This was truly a disturbing read. And I enjoyed it in so many different ways. And one of the things was even the writing, even the story itself was pretty fucking decent. It sort of sets you up. We get introduced to one of our main characters, this young girl, I believe Christine, and I believe she's supposed to be 13-ish years old, 13, 14 years old, talking about her mother and hearing her mother with various men in the other room, and getting visited by one of the men. So you feel like it's going to go a certain way until they throw a bit of a swerve at you. It just so happens that she has a creature that lives in the dark she doesn't know about that comes out and kind of dispatches our guy and kind of swears that he'll always protect her as long as she's alive from anything that were to happen to her. And we get this kind of imagery. So I think one of the things that makes this so disturbing is this art. This is its own very unique thing. This is coming from somebody who is, to me, and again, obviously all of this is assumptions on my part, that's battling some sort of demons or something, or telling some sort of personal story, or maybe completely faking it. And but there's a different level of strangely enough, the Power Comics channel, if you know that channel, they did a book club for a number of episodes. Well worth checking out. I haven't seen them all, but the ones I've seen have been fantastic. They did a book club where they looked at this one. And one of the things that he said in that was, if this was drawn by a competent artist, you wouldn't pay this any attention. It just wouldn't even resonate. The fact that the art looks like this is what makes this resonate so much, and really take on a different level of disturbing. There's lots of talk about her mother. I think her mother's in her 30s. What do they say? Something like looks too old to have 2 children, and looks too young for something or other. I can't remember exactly what the wording is, but there's a real comment on her age at 30 years old, being a 30-year-old woman, which maybe gives away. This is written and drawn by Angelo DeSico, so maybe gives away some of the bias of the creator and writer here. Discovers her friend in the house that's been again, or sorry, mother, I apologize, her mother, that's been dispatched by her Sandman-like figure, is what they were saying in the Power Comics chat as well too. And then the promise. So then the next twist is, I'm going to protect you. I'm absolutely going to protect you as long as you live, because I want you to live a long time, because you are going to be the mother of my children, whether you like it or not. Once you hit a certain age, and I believe that age again is 30. This page kind of takes us quickly through time from being a teenager, 13 years old, to 16 to 20 to 30 years old, and that's when it's now her time to bear his shadow demon children. It's insane. It's really just one of the most insane comics I've ever read in my life. It's not hyperbolic. It's just true. It's just disturbing in a very unique way. So I don't know. This is one of the people I found some email. I found email address and an old blog to kind of comment. So I've reached out. I'm hoping that I hear back from somebody, because I would love to talk more about this. And then the last story, not really a comic. It's like a collage. So photos with some text, and they sort of transition out of, because the last bit is her younger sister, who's gone insane and is in an asylum and is being pumped full of drugs, and they sort of take that like she's kind of hallucinating, and then that leads us sort of into the next story. Please, enough of my childhood. So like she's talking to it's a really neat kind of trick to sort of tie these things together. And this kind of talks about, there's a famous British comedy bit with a couple of British comedians dressed up as Nazis, wondering if are we the bad guys? Do you think that we're the bad guys? So it's this type of thing here. Someone talking about their experiences and coming to the realization that they were they were evil. They were doing evil things. And again, so I think pairing that first story with this one also gives it a bit of like, what the fuck? I mean, we're still, yeah. I mean, it gives it that what the fuck? What have I bought? What's the backstory here? So unreal book. I would say that, hello, Colin. I would say that out of anything that I've bought recently, this is this is honestly, I've started putting together my list of my 500 comic goal, because I'm going to do the same thing I did last year, sort of look back at highlights of the list. This is probably top 5 of books that I've read this year. It had that much of an effect on me. I would not hesitate, if you see this, just pick it up. Pick it up and experience it for yourself. I'm really eager to see what else this series had. I think the first volume went 6 issues. This was the final one. Then there was a second volume that only went 2 issues. In the second volume, one of them is available on my comic shop. In this volume, 2 of them are, but they're like priced at $11 or $12, which is a little nuts considering I got this one for $0.25. So this is one I'll be keeping my eye out for, and hoping that I stumble across it somewhere. It should be a good one. I've started kind of compiling it and just putting together, sort of doing like a top 20 kind of thing. So definitely a standout. And in that same vein, we'll go just 2 more books to talk about. In that same vein, we'll go to this one. This is also, I reached out to somebody, I think, that was involved with this book. So I'm hoping to hear back from them as well. The Preservation of Obscurity by Lump of Squid. And this is based out of Toronto, Canada. And the year on this one, 1989. Preservation of Obscurity is published by Lump of Squid, Toronto, Ontario, 1989. Printed in Canada. Written by Sean Thomas, Frank Perna, and then illustrated by Frank Perna, assistant illustrator Sean Thomas. And it was, I think I found Frank Perna, so I'm hoping that he'll respond. I'm sorry for chuckling there, but this idea that it was illustrated by Frank and then assistant illustrator by Sean Thomas. I'm curious who had what duties. Again, in the world of, this is the shit that I live for. This is the shit that I live for. When I dig through these bins, this is exactly and macabre. This is the thing that I am desperate to find, and so excited when I do. This is probably one of the messiest, most abstract comics in my collection. It's bizarre. It's this birth of these the birth of these two gods that are sent down to Earth to find an idol. They're not really given much information, and when they get to Earth, they end up getting arrested and meeting another figure in prison, which we'll get to in a minute. This has a Rory Hayes type of feel to it. This has a very underground feel to it. And again, it's all of this stuff that's such a mess. But if you really sit and look at these pictures, like this is the Great Uvula, which is where these two gods are born out of. Finally, he reaches his center of calm. As his tension eases, the lips loosen their hold. Oswald is expelled from the Great Uvula onto the pungent loam. Her glistening lips slap shut behind him. Free of the Great Uvula, Oswald retrieves an amulet from his pocket and gazes into it. He must contact his accomplice, Spoot Lagumbo, who awaits his signal inside the glistening lips. Unbelievable. There's so many times during this book that you can't help but stop and just stare at the page. And again, one of the things that I love with kind of the drug comics or even Doctor Strange is this look at another world that it's hard to imagine. This brings that to another level. Forget about the astral plane. This is something that's even beyond the astral plane. I mean, again, like surprisingly enough, the writing isn't half bad. It's serviceable. It tells the story. Like, what are we looking at here? I think something on fire, or is it Northern Lights, or is it them manifesting themselves on the planet Earth? When they first land, they meet up with land in a farmer's field, and the farmer comes out to greet them. Here's our farmer here, kind of saying, get off my land. And we move to this perspective here. So looking up at him, and this is the kind of stuff that reminds me of some undergrounds. It just, that type of storytelling, all in one page, and then just some ink blotted in the corner. And then here's a look at our farmer looking down the barrels of a shotgun. But if you do, I'm a fool, because I do it to the death. Kerak. Amazing. It's an amazing book. This one is amazing as well. There's promise at the end of, we've only just started to dig into our world, and we're going to tell you all of these other stories. As far as I can tell, this was the only issue that was drawn. And again, there's moments of just beauty here. So we have one of our figures hiding in a tree, but we're in a downpour and a storm, and there's obviously lightning and thunder. So these tree branches start acting as the lightning, and then we're getting all these figures in the water here. All of this extra work that's around. It's a great looking page, you know. Yeah, this is outstanding. It's an outstanding comic. These two were the highlights. Macabre and this one, I think, were the highlights. So here they are in prison, and we meet our third and kind of final character. Well, third and final character for this issue, anyway. Maybe you have a plan. Who is it that we'll get to the person's name that he's going to take them to see? Del Shaman is who he's going to take them to see. And when they hear, hello, Nate. And when they hear Del Shaman's name, they have a physical reaction to it. So they know that maybe this is on their way to what their mission is. This is the preservation of obscurity there, Nate. The insides as they eat some earth food for the first time, and what happens to their internals. And then there's their externals. Sparak. Fantastic panel. Zbracht. So they bust out of the joint. Their newfound friend is going to take them to see this shaman. They get in a truck, a stolen truck. No, not yet. I was saying before you got here, though, I think, fingers crossed, I think I might have found the artist, and I sent a message out hoping to hear back from them so I can find out more of what they did and what the deal was with this. For sure, obviously, I will report back to everybody if that happens. This is a fantastic page, too. So this is mind-blowing. So in the back here is where we get... they kind of break down their storytelling and trying to find that balance of not sharing too much information but not making it too abstract. And this is just in a start of a look into our world. We still got more coming, man. Again, this is something. Give me 12 issues of this, man. Give me 12 fucking issues. I am absolutely there. Send me a lump of squid shirt, unless I just make myself a bootleg shirt, and keep this coming for 12 issues, because I'm with you. I need to see what it is that you want to talk to us about, so phenomenal. Keep a lookout for those two. Those are unreal. So then finally, for the ones we'll look at tonight, Roberta Gregory kick is what I've been on. Reading some naughty bits. And I found Artistic Licentiousness, issues 1 and 2. There is a third issue. Issue 2, so here's where all of this kind of creates this world that's there for these artists and creators to kind of just take the plunge and tell a story they want to take. So apparently there was 3 years between these 2 issues. Roberta Gregory worked at Fantagraphics. She was doing Naughty Bits was starting to actually build up some steam. She had some stories in some other anthologies. She had taken a trip overseas to go to a couple of comic conventions and make appearances. She's great with, I'm getting all of this from these books. She's fantastic at doing these write-ups at the end that really give you some context for what she's doing. This book took me by surprise. This is an unreal book. This is really, really well told. This is Roberta Gregory on it within this comic about erotic comics. This is her take of what she thinks an erotic comic should be like, and it gets to these storytelling levels that I'm I'm with these characters. I want to see. This is all Roberta Gregory on this, written and drawn by Roberta. So this first one came out on Starhead. 3 years later, she self-publishes for the first time issue number 2, and then there was an issue number 3, and that's all that she did for this run here. Just those 3 issues. And what she's trying to do here and the way that she was able to draw us in is really kind of masterful. She's a great storyteller. I'm really becoming a bigger and bigger fan of hers the more that I read. Um, Honestly, as much as I like some of the naughty bits and as funny as that is, I think this is a better book so far. There's a really complete story here, diving into erotic comics, what erotic comics would be. The creator, the characters in here, the female character is a writer herself, and the male character is a comic artist. And this is a look at some of the comics that he's drawing, that are getting published, and he's got kind of a quite a name for himself out there in this world. And here's some look at his stuff too here. Or sorry, this was her fantasies going on here. And this is a look at his kind of sketches getting ready to, like, laying out pages and things. I care about these characters. I'm interested in what happens to them. Their relationship, by the end of issue 2, their relationship has dissolved. She's a lesbian, who at the beginning is sort of unsure of if she wants to be with a man or if she wants to be with a woman. He's kind of this comic artist who's just a shut-in. He's masturbating often in this book. And then he has a homosexual experience with another comic creator who's come into town to visit to visit a comic con, to appear, sorry, in a comic convention. It's such a great world. It all feels very real. It all feels like this is real dialogue. This isn't something that's made up just to tell her story. Again, it's another book that I'd love to. There's some really harrowing, sad moments. This is a very sad moment. This woman that he's had a crush on for a long time is dating somebody who lives in his building who's a real piece of shit. And he just can't figure it out. The classic, what is she doing with him type of thing. He ends up kind of breaking her heart, and our main character here finds her on a bus bench, and in a moment of kind of weakness, she's like, maybe I'll just kind of screw this guy, because we're getting all their inner monologue as they're going through these moments to sort of get back at my ex. And it's actually very, very sad. It's incredibly sad. So again, taking this idea of doing an erotic comic, but having it be this sort of heartbreaking affair, is very bold. And I mean, I can only imagine that because she was kind of gaining some popularity, this did pretty well. But what do I know? I just know that this is one to keep an eye out for as well. I love her style. It's rough, but I do really enjoy her style, and it's because I'm so absolutely engaged in the story. Once I finished issue 2, I mean, I want issue 3. I want to read it right now. So it's one of those, has an effect on you, a book like this, which is great. Yeah, and just these mixed up, confused characters that don't really know what it is that they want and don't know where they're going. So I mean, the other thing is they're relatable in a few different ways, right? Like being of a certain age, thinking back on some of these things. Yeah, it's touching. And then they have these really nice moments as well too, where it looks like at this point these two might end up getting together in kind of a relationship way, but things kind of fall apart, and that becomes heartbreaking too. So anyway, Roberta Gregory, here's just a quick look at issue number 2. And again, 3 years between them. And then promises in here that it wouldn't be another 3 years for the 3rd issue to come out. This is a book that she'd been working on for a while, had this idea of, originally she wanted to do all 3 issues at once and release it just as a graphic novel, but that didn't end up happening rather. So she ended up doing this. But like I said, this is her first time self-publishing, I think, is this issue here. And in the back of this one, we get a little kind of follow up like she does in Naughty Bits as well too, where she kind of talks to us about what's been going on and what's coming up. So great stuff here. Great stuff. So that's it. That's the stuff I wanted to bring to your attention. Thanks very much for hanging out there, Miss So, Nate Pancakes, Loading the Cannon. Thanks very much for coming. And to those of you watching in the future, enjoy, and we'll talk to you later.